Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of the Carousel Podcast. Day before Thanksgiving. I'm actually going to release this today, Nathan. That's something I didn't just
Oh,
say to you because I want to hit that hot Balenciaga news cycle while it's
right.
fresh. I'm here with one of my favorite people in the entire marketing world, a man named Nathan Baker. Hello, Nathan.
Hey, well, that's very flattering. Thank you.
Nady Bakes. Um, Definitely the favorite person I've ever hired. And I'll tell you something, man. Hiring people is fucking impossible. It's especially for Will. I run this based marketing agency, um, trying to be, and it's so hard to hire people. But you came out of the woodwork a while ago and are really, really good at what you do, which is communication strategy genius. You work
Yeah,
for
yeah. Genius. That's a little far. I wouldn't go that far, but I do what I do. I do my job. I'm good at what I do. Okay.
yeah, I'm good at what I do. Um, and yeah, you work for global brands, huge global brands, but let's not name any of them, but brands you would know. And you specialize in China, in the Asian
Yeah,
market.
yeah. So
Um,
a lot of brands you don't know too from China. Yeah, those as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, you could say I specialize in China. I mean, I lived in Asia for like literally half my life, probably actually more than half, because my dad was working in Asia when I was growing up. So I lived in Taiwan and Japan when I was under 18, and then when I went to college in the States, and after that I decided to go back to Asia. So I was in China for 12 years. And that's when I got into marketing. My dad was in marketing, and I didn't study marketing or anything, but I always liked the psychology, kind of sociology aspect of studying people. Why do people do the things they do? Why do people think the things they do? How can you influence people, get them to, get them on your side? That kind of stuff like interests me. So that that got adapted into a career in marketing. And in college I did a little thesis on like consumer culture in China and stuff. So I had a bit of academic experience there, but I'm not like, I didn't go to school for marketing. I just kind of got into it, was at the right place at the right time. This is when social media was really starting to boom. And I kind of saw the rise of the China side of that. And then saw the rise of Chinese companies expanding globally. So I sort of was there in the beginning when Chinese brands really started to do a global push. And I was working with a lot of them, doing social media campaigns and things like that on a global scale. So that's kind of like my work background. But I don't live in China anymore. I live in the States, but I still work with folks in Asia, China, Japan, Taiwan, which is an inalienable part of China, depending on your point of view, or maybe it's not. Our clients in Taiwan definitely don't think it's part of China. I'll just say that. But I work with brands in Asia, global brands doing a lot of communication. It could be communicating to people specifically in the US, or it could be a global campaign that's like talking to people in the Arab world, as well as Southeast Asia, as well as Europe. Or it could be, really large scale. It could be more, talking to people in Malaysia specifically. So we cover a lot of ground. It's communication strategy for how are these brands going to communicate with people, be human. I find a lot of brands have this problem, especially a lot of the brands I work with in Asia who don't speak English as a first language, but they're trying to speak to English speakers, and they're coming across as like aliens trying to communicate to humans, or like robots trying to communicate to humans. It's just really off. So my job is to help them be more human, to help them connect with people, to make people actually care about what they're saying. That's what I try to do.
What do you mean make them care about what they're saying? What do you
Well, who
mean?
cares what a brand is saying on social media? Like a regular person browsing Instagram, Twitter, they see, oh, a brand said something. Oh, I gotta read more. Click the read more button. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really dialed in here with this brand post. So I mean, I think most people just kind of, it's irrelevant to them. They cruise past it. A lot of these brand managers, they sort of think there's this narrative they're creating on social where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do this post, and then people are going to see the next post, and they're going to see the next post. No, they might see one of them, they might not see them all. So you got to understand how people use social, so you can use that to your advantage, and make an impact, make an impression on them when they do happen to scroll past you.
So why is all of brand Twitter so woke? We're gonna get into Balenciaga in a second here, but since you're bringing this up, why is so? For example, there was a really just parodically hilarious tweet yesterday from the NHL, where the NHL is saying trans women are women, trans men are men. I can't even read this without laughing. The NHL, what you're imagining is like, some grizzled like guy with slicked back hair and fucking Erie, Pennsylvania or something. You know what I mean? Like you're just imagining the person of the NHL, and then
Yeah.
they tweet trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary identity is real. This is the NHL saying this. Like,
Yeah, nobody brought up non-binary.
Yeah. How does this happen? Why is every single brand tweeting this fucking garbage? Why are they doing this?
Well, it's a very Western world thing. Like the brands I work with in China, they have no interest in any of this stuff, or even Japan for that matter. A lot of the brands in Asia, they just are not interested in any of the woke stuff. It just doesn't resonate with any consumers there. In the West, I guess, has been ingrained in our culture. It's been pushed. And a lot of the, I guess, marketing world is influenced by people in these hotspots like New York City, and they're all in the same little place. They all have the same, like they share a lot of the same opinions and share a lot of the same culture. So you end up getting this sort of monoculture that's very, influenced by people in this one little place in one part of the country. I feel like that's a big part of it. It's not everything, but that's why you're seeing all this everywhere. All these, and it's a lot of it's not just advertising, it's like PR as well. So I mean, I'm guessing all these PR agencies, they're working with all the same brands and they're giving them all the same advice, and so you're seeing a lot of the same stuff out there.
So who is actually tweeting this? Is there some 22-year-old? So as we both know, we're both in charge in both of our jobs of creating like brand guidelines decks. And these are the kind of principles that all of the brand expression, including your tweets, come from. So, for example, I recently was given for a freelance gig a 60-page deck for a brand in America, large entertainment brand that we all know. And, it lays out the guidelines of what's our social campaign supposed to look like? What are our principles? What are we supposed to talk about? And it was all woke. It was 100% woke shit. Like they were like, every example of a tweet that we should be making was like, we support LGBTQ plus filmmakers, or, women power for International Women's Day. Like literally, there were no brand expressions that were not woke. And this brand has nothing to do with woke stuff. It's just an entertainment brand. So somebody higher up is making that agenda come down, right?
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, for sure.
So who's doing that? And then who's doing the actual tweeting? Is there some like 23-year-old PR person who's sitting around tweeting for the NHL who is getting a deck that says like, trans women are women. You should talk about this for the NHL. Like, who is doing that?
So if I were to guess, I would say there isn't a trans women or women like guideline in the NHL social. If I were to guess, there isn't like something that specific, but I think they have a social media manager. I can't tell you how old they are, what they look like. I mean, I could guess. I would assume they're in their 20s. They're probably younger. I'm not going to call them an intern. Sorry, somebody's.
Yeah, no, not an intern.
About that. Yeah, I don't think that's like kind of that old meme. It's like, oh, what intern tweeted this and is going to get fired now, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably somebody young who has those beliefs, and they thought they would insert those beliefs into the NHL's Twitter experience or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I would guess that that's true, but I'm guessing they probably have the support of like senior management or something. It's like, well, we're not going to make them delete this because there's nothing controversial about what they just said. We should support this. So, I mean, there's probably some kind of brand value about inclusivity and all that would protect this person tweeting that, even if it wasn't, kind of the normal thing they're supposed to say. But it made a lot of noise. And I think a lot of social media managers, especially like American brands on Twitter, they take risks. They take a lot more risks than the brands in Asia do. And sometimes it gets them in trouble. Sometimes they go viral and everybody's talking about it for 2 days. And then we move on to the next thing, and then somebody else goes viral. That there's that kind of room for risk that I think brands in America like to play with. And then a lot of the time it's like, just some kind of tedious woke stuff. And here we go again. And I don't know, it's all very boring to me now. A lot of that kind of that style of brand communication, the woke stuff.
Well, like brand Twitter, that's what this is called. It's like sassy yes queen brand Twitter that's like woke and in a gay voice. And I think the NHL was sponsoring some kind of trans hockey league. And so that's why this came out. That's what this is about. So it is taken a little bit out of context, but it's just so hilarious because it's like, who is getting to these people? Why is sports such a place where this agenda can find roots? It's like, it seems like every sporting league, we'll get to this later in terms of all the ridiculous things that World Cup teams are doing. But it just seems like sports is a place where this agenda can find purchase.
Yeah, it's a little overboard, and like I was saying, it's tedious. I feel like the average consumer sees this and they're like, again, really? Like, you're still on with this? Okay, can we have some entertainment or something, please? Like,
well, so part of it though, and this brings us to Balenciaga, is they take these risks. What was the big brand that tweeted like, "Have you tried eating ass?"
Oh God, yeah, who was that? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's probably one of the fast food brands or FMCG. They're always the ones tweeting the nasty stuff.
Yeah, or the really feisty stuff, or like the Postmates bottoms menu. Like this really yes queen shit. So part of the reason they do it, it was PBR who tweeted about eating ass, and then that guy got fired, and then it's like now his whole thing is he's the guy who tweeted eating ass, and I'm sure he like gets big contracts because of that. So I think that these PR sort of flare-ups are intentional, right? I mean, I think in a large part the reason they're taking risk is because they want to be the center of the news cycle for 48 hours, right? And it doesn't seem to actually hurt them. It's like there's always these, of course it was trending when, what was this other one that just happened with, what were we? Oh yeah, Tampax. This Tampax thing, Tampax just tweeted, you're in their DMs, we're in them. We're not the same thing, saying, it's like, oh, sassy, funny. And then there's of course, there's the, BoomerCon female hashtag boycott Tampax in response, right? Which trends on Twitter. The bottom line isn't damaged. They don't ever, they're like, oh, their stock price lost $3. That's $80 billion this week. And then it goes back up the next week. They don't actually face any consequences for this stuff. And it makes them the center of the news cycle for 48 hours. So how much of this do you think is intentional?
I think the smart planners out there, it is intentional, and I think they do that with a lot of movie promotions. Like when a movie's coming out, like there's always the big, oh, it's another woke movie reaction. All the YouTubers start making the videos. They fire up the YouTube and start uploading all that. So I think that's part of it. It's like, how do we generate noise, to get, word of mouth? How do we increase our share of voice by 10%? On this movie release? They're asking those kind of questions. Well, it's like, well, why don't we create a little controversy or something? But we have our guidelines, our do's and don'ts for the controversy. We're not going to be racist. We're not going to be that kind. We're not going to do like a Kanye controversy kind of situation. You can generate a lot of noise in a lot of different ways. So there are, it's not like they're just doing anything. It's like they're being very specific.
Well, they're being left. They're being left. Yeah. They're taking extreme left-wing risks and zero right-wing risks, right? So it's like they're willing to say the gayest thing in the world, and we know they like seeing the right react that way. They like seeing the right do the boycott thing because then it trends on Twitter. And this brings us to Balenciaga. So there's a big Balenciaga controversy going right now. And when I see this controversy, I see this completely as Balenciaga being the marionette behind the scenes, knowing exactly that they're going to piss off the right, they're going to piss off, all the conservatives, and that's exactly what they're going for. So can you tell us about this Balenciaga situation? As
Yeah.
you are a
So
fashionista maven, as
yeah,
we know.
yeah, you know me. Well, Balenciaga, they made this holiday campaign recently, and they had like some little toddlers like posing with some accessories, I think purses and things like that, and they were like S&M themed, and there are all these little S&M references and accessories and other things in the room with them. There's all sorts of stuff. Now, the big thing that got people all worked up was like there's some document in this ad that refers to some child porn case. And I think that was actually from another campaign. Like I read something trying to like debunk this. And they said like that was from another Balenciaga campaign. So there's a separate Balenciaga campaign that had like this child porn criminal reference that's just kind of in there. It's like this piece of paper that's on the table, like and a purse is on top of it. And there's this other campaign with children around a bunch of S&M toys and stuff. So like I don't think that gets them off the hook at all. What's the creative director thinking, like having kids in that kind of environment, that kind of message? And even if it is on purpose, if, hey, we're trying to make some noise, it's like what cost and what kind of message are you sending? It's just really gross. And I've never bought anything from Balenciaga before. I definitely won't ever. They just seem like a really gross company to me. And the thing that gets me is the whole thing with Ye. I dead named Kanye West earlier. It's Ye, right? So Ye, he was excommunicated from Balenciaga. They even like left Twitter to protest Elon Musk, supposedly. Like they made a big stand there. And then this happens, so it's like they're trying to virtue signal or trying to like, oh, look at our values. Look at our strong values. We know when to draw the line. We know when to make a stand. By the way, check out this ritual child abuse. Yeah. Right. So like, yeah, it's just gross. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of Balenciaga.
Yeah. They're willing to lose how many hundreds of millions of dollars with their very successful Ye partnership because he says something that still nobody seems to be able to say about Jews besides that they run Hollywood, which they do. And everybody knows this. It's like there's literally a book sitting on my desk by a Jew.
Well, you're Jewish. You're Jewish. You can say that. You say, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
I mean, you can say it too on here. It's fine. You're allowed. You get full J word pass here on the carousel.
The other J's might not agree with you, though. That's a problem. Yeah.
Well, they're idiots. So, it's like, there's a book literally sitting on my desk that somebody gave me called How the Jews Created Hollywood. It literally says the Jews on the book and it's by a Jew. So it's like the idea that we're supposed to pretend that that's not true. It's also Kanye's not saying, let's kill the Jews. He's not even saying anything really offensive. He's literally just saying dumb shit. He's a rock star. So because of this, Balenciaga is willing to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in stopping this thing. And then a week later, they have this 48-hour, child sexualization timeline. Yeah. And then they have this, a very well laid out apology. And I think even in a subsequent apology, they've said, oh, we're taking legal action against the person that did this, as if kind of hinting that, oh, somebody did this without permission inside the company, which I don't fucking buy.
Yeah.
For a second. I think this was in a way a response to Kanye. It's like, I think I know this is a conspiracy and I have absolutely no evidence for this at all, but I feel like this was almost like a fuck you to Kanye. First of all, I think it was totally intentional. They knew that doing this was very subtle. They knew that, maybe they didn't think anybody was going to see that child porn reference on the other ad. But it's really fucking weird that they have that in there, like they're showing that to somebody, right? Somebody is
the creative director approved it. The creative director had to look at this and be like, yeah, I'm signing off on this. I'm putting my name on this.
Do we know
that looks good?
What the case was that was referenced? Do we know like anything about
it? We could look it up real quick. I don't want to create any dead air. How about when you're talking at one point, I'm going to look it up. And I'm going to be like, hey, remember that case we were talking about? Yeah.
Some case involving child porn. And I think this is intentional. I think it's like, we saw that tweet or did you see the message that his creepy ass trainer sent him, Kanye, that was basically saying,
Yeah, that was
yeah, if you don't,
insane,
right,
creepy, and evil.
right, if you don't shut your mouth, we're gonna like, throw you in an insane asylum and take your kids away. So,
Yeah.
that's what this power structure does. It destroys people. I mean, that's its goal. Read again. I always tell everybody to read Catch and Kill, Ronan Farrow's book. And Ronan Farrow's book, it does an incredible job of showing when this system wants to destroy you, how it acts. Because Weinstein, Black Bloc, this Israeli, a personal espionage organization. There's all these like canceling forces that do creepy shit, right? They send you creepy things, and they try and manipulate you and make you feel crazy, and when you start going against them, right? And like, for example, did you see recently there was a Andrew Tate got canceled. He was one of the ones who really got canceled, like mega canceled. He got kicked off every single platform. Andrew Tate, right?
Yeah. I've known about him for a while.
Yeah. And he got labeled a misogynist by the ADL, and was simultaneously suddenly canceled by every single platform. And he talks about it, and it wasn't just like getting kicked off Facebook. His Uber got canceled like immediately. His like Apple like ID got canceled. His bank account got frozen and shut down all in the same day.
Yep.
So who is making that decision? Like who is doing this weird, creepy shit behind the scenes? Somebody is doing it, right? I mean, there's some coordination. And so I feel like Balenciaga wanted to say like a really special, like, fuck you to Kanye's like Christian beliefs. He's out there basically saying this satanic globalist force is coming for your children. He says this.
Didn't he also say he wanted to get his kids away from the modeling world? Like he didn't want his kids involved in that. Yeah.
Right. He says that. And so I feel like this was them saying like, around Christmas, our holiday campaign is going to be about fucking kids, and we're going to get away, right? And and not only that, they get all this PR. This is what annoys me about my fellow frogs on Twitter, or my fellow right-wing people on Twitter, is they're like falling right into the trap. They're all up in arms and like, oh, they keep posting, see, Balenciaga apologized. This is what happens when you put pressure on. I'm like, your pressure didn't do jack shit. They're saying that they deleted their Instagram posts. They always delete their Instagram posts before new campaigns. All you did is give them a bunch of new publicity. You think any of these right-wing people are buying Balenciaga shit? No. Just the people buying Balenciaga shit are on their side. They like this. They love this shit. It titillates them. They don't care. So
it's the brand for elite pedos.
Exactly. So it's like all you did was fall exactly into their trap. And I'm just like, oh my God, like what you should have done is just completely ignored it. That's what would have pissed them off the most. But we're falling into it here, talking about it even more. So,
well, I wouldn't want to ignore it. I think we should talk about it. I think you need to face evil, and I think you need to talk about it. I don't think you should give them a pass after their stupid little apology, though. Their little apology was really weak. Like they didn't really address like how disgusting what they did was, and they had no explanation. Well, how are we gonna have safeguards for this in the future? Like whenever, like
they're doing
in the
it
agency world,
they don't. I mean, the idea that we're expecting them to be responsible. They're doing this on purpose. This wasn't like a mistake. Oh, whoops. Yeah. We accidentally made an entire photograph campaign. We found the models. They found child models to do this. This isn't something you just like slip up and do. It's not a single tweet. It's not the eating ass tweet. This is like a difficult photo shoot. They had to print out this child porn case and put it under the bag. It's for sure. I think it's like all kind of a tete against Kanye and, kind of like Christianity in general. They're saying like, we can get away with this.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, spicy. I mean, look, what I will say is sexualization of children has always been the provenance of high fashion. You know, they've always kind of, this is a line that they've always flirted with, right? They get 18-year-old, you know, they find these models as young as they can possibly get them. And, you know, they want these super skinny, youthful people, you know, so it's like this has always been kind of something that fashion messes with. And what's our,
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
you know, like what's our biggest taboo right now? Our biggest taboo is like pedophilia. So it's, this is where they go in order to kind of like seem, you know, in order to titillate and freak people
Ugh.
out and be dark, you know, which is terrible. It's disgusting. Do you remember there was a really ridiculous and terrible Levi's ad, like from actually back in the day, that was like totally sexualizing children? It was like really,
No, I don't remember.
yeah. So this shit's
Thankfully,
been
I didn't see that one. Yeah.
yeah, let me try and find it.
But, you know, what are they going to do next? I mean, they're just going to go on same old thing, right? Like there's going to be no real consequence for them, I think, right? Like you're saying.
No.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah, it's just me. It's just me who wasn't going to buy them anyway is definitely not going to buy them now, you know.
Yeah. This was like a Levi's, I think it was like 90s. It was directed by some thing. It was like a serial killer. It was like literally like maybe it wasn't Levi's. But it looked like it was a person like oh yeah, this was it. This is this band ad in yeah, and it like looked like it was from the perspective of a serial killer like shooting somebody they were about to like kill, you know, like snuff porn. It was like a snuff.
Oh my God.
It was like the beginning of a snuff video.
Was this along with the release of 8mm starring Jack?
Yeah, exactly. It like
sorry,
like
Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
Here it is. I'll put it in the notes. It was it was really gross, but it was kind of trying to do the same thing. Anyway, so as a communications person, like, have you ever come across one of these kind of like intentionally, because you're doing it in Asia, so it's like they don't mess with this stuff, but have you ever seen anything that was like intentionally trying to get bad press?
Most of my clients are very risk averse and wouldn't want to do that sort of thing. But I had one very small client early on, like when I really started to get into social marketing and when I lived in Shanghai. There's a book called Shanghai Cocktails, COCK tales, like a dick, you know, really gross, kind of trashy name. It's like supposed to be like, you'd think it's like some sex pat book, like about some guy who travels abroad to have sex with women, you know. That's what you're going to expect from it. That was kind of the marketing of the book. So they needed somebody to help market this book, and it was very sexualized in how it was presented. Now I read it. It wasn't that sexual, actually. It was just kind of like, oh, this is what it's like to live in China in the early 2000s as like a white guy. And I mean, it's some good stories. I found it kind of relatable because I lived in China for a while, but they were very into doing whatever we recommended they do. And we were messing around with like this sort of China English literary scene. There's all these people who write these blogs and at these like local publications about, you know, books about China and things like that. So these people all like scoffed at the Shanghai cocktails. Like, that looks like trash, you know? And so I was pretending to be the author. Like, they let me pretend to be him for marketing purposes. And I was like emailing all these people doing book reviews. And I was just like pestering this one guy. And eventually, like, I wore him down for months. And he ended up reviewing the book just out of like trying to get rid of me, you know? And he did it. And it was a horrible review. So we ended up making this video. We ended up making a response video to him, and we made like an ISIS video. Like, it was like, this was like the height of like ISIS videos, you know, at the time. It was like 2015. And so we had like a guy with like a mask over his face, and like he's like kind of talking to the camera, giving threats, and we did like a voice changer, and we added this weird element of this like Chinese chick with like a low cut top, like cutting carrots like right behind him. We added this weird bizarre elements to it. and we made that response video, and he was just like, he got such a kick out of it. He wrote like a response to our response video, and he's like, that book was trash, but this was pretty funny how they responded to me. So we generated some noise for this book, and like people were still sort of talking about it like years later, so that was a really fun project to work on. Not a lot of money, but like there was so much freedom and so much like, it was so like guerrilla and underground feeling.
Yeah,
that was like one of my favorite projects to ever work on, just because it was like trolling, it was like professional trolling.
How did they hire you? How did this, like, how does a book like that have a budget to hire like a PR agency?
My boss knew a guy who was helping promote the book, who was like kind of this like American mover and shaker real estate investor in China. He didn't write the book, but he like knew the writer. He's like buddies with the writer, and he was helping sort of do a lot of the business management. So he knew my boss. My boss kind of put me on this project, and that's how it all came together.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, any final thoughts on this Balenciaga thing? It's disturbing, but I feel very baited. Like I feel like I mean, it's like one thing to get up in arms about it, but it's like people really need to learn that, like, your boycott shit, your pressure, it doesn't do anything. No one cares. Nobody's gonna not buy Balenciaga. You're not hurting Balenciaga by tweeting about this in any way,
Yeah, it's more like morale building for our side versus their side. It's like, look what they're doing over there. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Come on, let's get fired up, guys. Like, look at them. They can't do that. So it's more like cheerleading almost, for like right versus left cheerleading. I feel like that's what a lot of these moments are. It's just like, it's like a rallying point,
Yeah, totally. So what do you think? I mean, do you think that they actually are run by pedos? Or are they just doing it? I mean, like, are these guys,
I think they're
around? Are these guys?
I think there's some
pedophiles?
I think there's some pedos in some of these companies. I heard a story. I can't say who it is. I mean, I probably should but I can't verify the story. That's why I don't want to say it. But there was a guy who worked at a very big 4A agency in China, and I heard stories that he used to go to Sri Lanka to have sex with little boys. I heard this story, and I wasn't sure if it's true, but I heard it from a very trustworthy source who worked in the industry and kind of knew everybody in the ad industry in Asia. And I think there's a lot of creeps in a lot of these companies who are high up, and they're psychopaths or something. And there's that whole research about how like a lot of CEOs or a lot of executives are psychopaths, and a psychopath might not have a problem having sex with a child. So there you go.
Well, and it might also be kind of like a word is bond thing, It's like how men traditionally bond over, banging women. It's like they're when you get to that level of power, there is something to the idea that they're bonding over this ultimate taboo. It's like they can do the ultimate taboo. They've done everything else. They have the power to do whatever they want, and like this is the one thing they can't do. So it's like as Pizzagate, going back to Pizzagate, like, do I think that there was actual children in the basement of Cosmic Pizza or whatever the hell in
Comet
Pizza? Yeah. Do I think there was actually like children tied up in the basement of Comic Pizza, or what is it? Comet Pizza, Comet Ping Pong in DC? Yeah. Like, no. I don't think Hillary Clinton is, actually injecting adrenochrome. But if you look at the Instagram posts of the guy who was running Comet Ping Pong, he was for sure signaling pedophilia. Like, it was very obvious, like, it's like,
he's a real creep.
Go back and look at his shit. It was like, there is no person that could look at that and not be like, okay, this is really fucking weird. Like that doesn't prove anything. What is maybe he is just a creepy pedo. And, that also happens to be a hangout of DC power players, whatever. I think a lot of lines were drawn that weren't there. It actually ended up implicating a friend of mine.
No.
That's how I found out about it. I was actually way ahead of the Pizzagate curve because I had written an article about a friend of mine for an old client, and we started getting like thousands of hits on this article. And I was like, what is going on? And I like traced the backlinks, and I found the Pizzagate conspiracy that was on Reddit then, which is like
Mm.
that could never exist now, right? The
I
Reddit would
followed,
never
yeah, I
allow
followed that
that.
subreddit. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
on there. Yeah.
yeah. That could never happen now because Reddit would just ban it right away,
Yeah.
because they're owned by Condé Nast. But like I know this good woman, and they were trying to like say she was involved, and like this woman is absolutely has, she's totally not involved in an international child sex ring. Like I'm certain of that.
Yeah. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of that Q stuff, like, there's a lot of things Q didn't say in those Q drops that sort of the people who followed Q, they kind of built on what Q said and made up theories. So a lot of those Q conspiracy theories, there aren't even things that the Q person said. It's just like stuff the community said. So a lot of these things, they get all these different voices, and a lot of dumb people chiming in, and they don't have very good information. So you get like a bit of truth mixed with a bunch of shit, and then
right.
it
Yeah,
devalues the whole thing. Yeah.
yeah. You get like a kernel of truth, which I think was
Yeah.
that in Pizzagate. It was this one guy's Instagram that was involved with it was really, really creepy, and like he clearly was signaling
Yeah.
like in different ways. And then you look at John Podesta's art collection, which has Jeffrey
Well, that
Dahmer.
was his brother, John Podesta's brother. I think it was him with
No,
the
I think it was
creepy art
his. I think
collection.
it was John Podesta's art. Wasn't it John's art
It's
collection?
his brother. It's his fatter, creepier looking brother. Yeah, I
Are you
believe.
sure?
Now they hang out. I'm pretty sure. They hang out all the time though, so they're probably both pedos. If I were to bet, I would
Again,
just they're a
so
couple of creeps. Yeah.
I don't think it's like they're actually pedos. Like again, art. So they have all this really interesting art in their house, which is like, is it sexualizing children? Is it not sexualizing children? It's like I went to law school with a girl named Virginia Mann, who is Sally Mann's daughter. Sally Mann got really famous for her pictures of her like Virginia. She's a famous photographer. She got really famous for her pictures of her like life on her Virginia farm. And she takes naked pics of her kids, right? Of her two daughters, one of whom was Virginia Mann, who I knew, who I tried to get with in law school very unsuccessfully, and because she's pretty attractive. But she was one of these kids who was getting pictures taken of her. And you look at these pics that Sally Mann took, and it's like they're not super innocent. Like there is something in them that is like slightly like it's slightly on the border of like sexualization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that art has always done. Art is always messing with taboos. This is the ultimate taboo. And I do think like somebody like Podesta, he's having the Jeffrey Dahmer victim statue in his house. Like in the high art world, it's like that's really gross and disgusting, but it's also like high art people are always doing this. They always want this like creepy, slightly creepy thing. Like that it always has this edge, this slightly creepy edge to it. Which I don't necessarily think means they are an international network of pedophiles, right? It just means that they.
But it means they're all Satanists, though. Yeah. No.
Well, right. No, I mean they in a way.
Maybe they are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, right, because they're going to this border. They want to transgress. They want to transgress, and they have to transgress more and more and more in order to like get their fix. Which is satanic in a way, right? If you can't, if you don't have the discipline to control yourself and you're just going deeper and deeper into these disgusting things, that in a way is Satanism, right? I mean, that's the definition of it. It's sadomasochism. You're having to go further and further into the darkness in order to feel something.
Yeah, doesn't sound like a great time.
Hey, what was your take on that whole thing? Pizzagate.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was like I was saying before, there was a lot of sort of nonsense mixed in, and probably a lot of that might have been intentional to, because there probably was some truth. I mean, I think look at the Epstein stuff. There's elite pedophilia stuff going on. There's people that are getting away with it, and there's people that are probably being intimidated or murdered behind the scenes to cover it up. Like all this, I mean, there's gangster stuff here we're talking about.
Yeah. It's
so
like large scale gangster shit.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like when you got power, you got corruption. Like governments are like it's very even in America where we're supposedly much less corrupt than places like China or elsewhere, and we are to an extent. But at the same time, we're not some shiny beacon of hope. Like we have a lot of disgusting things going on in our country, and a lot of people getting away with it. There's a lot of corruption, and I just think people are sort of blinded by the left-right paradigm, and you know, like look, we got corruption on both sides, and we got a lot of really bad people calling shots for us, and it doesn't need to be this way.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let's switch gears here slightly to talk about World Cup virtue signaling, slightly
All right.
topic. So, being in international comms, tell me about your experiences with the World Cup.
So yeah, I've actually been to the World Cup for work, for business. I went in 2018. At the time, I was working in Shanghai. I had a client who was a sponsor, Vivo Smartphone. They're currently a sponsor at this Qatar World Cup. You'll see their logo there in the rafters. So Vivo's a smartphone company. They don't sell phones in the States, but they're very big in Southeast Asia. They're like number one or number two in a lot of markets. Like India is one of their biggest markets, for example. It's like 1 billion people, you know. So a ton of people know this brand. A ton of people use these phones, maybe not so much in America. So I work with them. They sent us to Russia for a couple of weeks. It was probably like the most fun business trip I've ever been on. It was so much fun. Like we got to go to all these games. We were creating content for the brand, you know, on site. And it's not like we're sponsoring players. It's not like we're there like taking photos of players. We're more about capturing the ambiance, the kind of spirit of the event and the atmosphere. And you know, they had like a brand center there, and they had one of those like hot chick DJs, you know, like that kind of influencer hustle. They had this like Russian chick who was DJing there. And it was just, I mean, it was just kind of fun, you know, it's safe brand stuff that, you know, that they do at these kind of events. So it was just creating content in around these games and seeing a lot of Russia, and it was awesome. Now it was very frustrating. Like sometimes the client expectations, like a Chinese brand communicating in English to the globe, they have like all these hangups. I would say, like if you look at Hisense right now, Hisense is like, well, it's in their slogan for this World Cup. They're number one in China, number two globally. Like their slogan's like number one in China, number two in the globe. And I saw this tweet today. This guy was tweeting like, why would you just tell people you're number two? It's like everybody's just going to go look at who's number one, and which is Samsung, you know? So like they came up with that. That's their big idea for World Cup sponsorship. How much money do they spend to be a sponsor? And they're like, hey, number one in China, number two worldwide, buy us. Like they could have sent a message that, you know, connected with people on a more emotional level, maybe say something that people care about rather than something that your boss cares about. Like, so I feel like a lot of these companies like that are doing these sort of things, they have like middle management who's managing the expectations of their stupid boss. And like the boss doesn't really have good ideas or doesn't really know what they're doing. They don't even speak English, but they're in charge of like global marketing or something. And, you know, you find this a lot with companies in that part of the world. So my experience with World Cup was a lot of fun, but there was a lot of frustration for some of the kind of typical China meets the world advertising hiccups, you know.
Right. So was there, what year was this?
2018.
Okay, so recently. So was there a lot of virtue signaling type shit there? Was everything rainbow flag? Was there so actually most of the virtue signaling
Russia.
we're seeing, yeah, right. They didn't do that shit. So most of the virtue signaling we're seeing now is kind of actually more the teams than the brands, right?
Yeah, or the brands that are boycotting. Yeah, I mean, there's those, and like Lucozade.
Are any brands boycotting this?
Well, yeah, some British brand like Lucozade is one of the British ones. It's like a drink, like a vitamin drink, and they pulled all their advertising out of it. They're one of the ones that's like they kind of stuck to their guns, like, hey, we have these values, we're not going to support this, and so they really pulled all the advertising. They're not associated with it at all. So there, you know, that was a PR story. That, you know, that's a story that makes some noise. Oh, we're pulling out.
Yeah.
But then with like BrewDog, like wasn't like BrewDog in the UK, they basically like, we're not going to do ads, or we're not going to sponsor it, or we're not going to do something, but they still have like brick and mortar bar locations, and they're still showing the games at the bar. So they're still having some association. So they're trying to virtue signal, but they're not really pulling completely out. They're like, well, the people still want to watch the game. They want to drink my beer. Come on in. It's like, so, there's a lot of these inconsistencies. I mean, I'm not on with the woke stuff. It's not my thing, but I do appreciate consistency.
Yeah.
Like if you have values and you stick to them, I like that. But Coca-Cola, they're like one of the biggest sponsors, and what they do all this internal training stuff that's very much D&I related. They probably have some diversity officer calling a lot of shots in terms of how employees should act and behave, what trainings they should go do. So they have all this stuff about their values, like these are the values we need to uphold, and it's important that every one of you employees also upholds those values. By the way, we're sponsoring Qatar World Cup, where they don't allow gays to marry, and in fact they might even chuck stones at them if they were to catch them in public. Now we are sponsoring that event, but I would like you to attend. Don't forget, we have a D&I training on Monday. I would like you to be there 9 a.m. So like that's I that kind of inconsistency is just so like give me a break.
The hypocrisy really is drives me crazy. So we actually haven't, so besides these couple small brands you've mentioned, we actually haven't seen a ton of like brand action. I think there's a few of them are signing up for the pledge, the human rights pledge that they have to give money to some organization that shakes them down.
The human rights pledge.
Yeah. They signed the human rights pledge.
Good for them.
Yeah, right. Whereas like the money goes to certainly doesn't go to those migrant workers, I'll tell you that. Because then they don't have to be migrant workers anymore. It is, the hypocrisy is just really astounding. And nobody had the balls to actually pull out of the event. No big brand was like, oh no, we're not going to do this. Some little brand.
It's sort of like, well, the people are there, like the people that like soccer, the many hundreds of millions, they didn't choose to bribe anybody or get bribed, so maybe they try to justify it in their head. Well, the people still are watching. They had nothing to do with this FIFA corruption. So we're going to put our brand where the eyeballs are. But then you could say the same about Twitter with, like, if you have a problem with Elon taking over, a bunch of brands pulled advertising there, and then they're struggling as a result. But it's like, well, hey, the people are still there. The people had nothing to do with that. The users are still on Twitter. Your beef is with Elon. So it's like the same logic. It's like, why are you pulling your money out of Twitter, but not the World Cup, that kind of thing, right?
Well, and it always comes down to the same line, right? They're always in support of the liberal causes and always not in support of the nationalist causes, basically, right? So they're always willing to sacrifice in one sense and not in the other sense. It's funny that I actually wanted to ask you, as a media guy, about Twitter. What do you think is going to happen? So say all these advertisers keep their money out, right? What are all the, so right now, 90% of Twitter's revenue, like most of Web2, is advertising. Twitter advertising has never been a great source of conversion for brands, right? I mean, they're kind of pissing their money away on the platform. Is that right?
It depends. It works for some, like some very niche brands. And I think for like fast food brands, I think they because if you're just browsing Twitter, like real time, you're catching and you see a little Wendy's ad or something, there's a Wendy's in every neighborhood. So it's like, I think when you got when you're a nationwide place with retail locations everywhere and people can easily just pop over, I think Twitter is effective for driving that kind of traffic. But yeah, if you're like a TV company, you're selling you're Samsung and you're selling TVs, there's better platforms to advertise,
Right. So these brands that are pulling their money from Twitter, do you think that they're going to lose a lot? Like, or is Twitter basically being propped up by them because they want to control Twitter?
Yeah. They feel like they will lose control of the narrative. I mean, this guy's going to bring back Donald Trump, and he did. So that's, I think, the mentality. They think he's dangerous, and we can't support that. We're going to punish him. We'll pull our money out. We're all going to go to Mastodon now. Right. So that's what's going on. I've been advising my clients, hey, just chill, just wait and see. Everybody's freaking out, but let's just wait and see. Like Elon said he's going to make some changes, with moderation, and he's looking for new ways to make money. He doesn't want to be so beholden to advertisers. So I mean, right off the bat, he's all talking about that $8 Twitter Blue thing, and so he's already looking for other ways to monetize. So he's not as beholden to advertisers, but he's going to need to have advertisers
Yeah.
to maintain revenue. And we're still spending, like with my clients, we're doing ads on Twitter. We haven't stopped. And it's important, like this is for some consumer tech companies like in the PC gaming scene. So Twitter, I think, has a lot of gaming gamers, a lot of gaming content creators. So it's relevant for that space. So we haven't left because the gamers are still there.
So what kind of ROI is a brand getting from advertising on Twitter?
I mean, again, it's like depends what kind of brand you are. When I'm using Twitter with the brands I work with, we're usually doing more brand awareness kind of stuff, letting people know that, about this brand or this product, and making people driving some kind of interest, or getting them to consider us, telling them about how some product feature can solve some problem in their life or something like that,
So
so we're usually
at that? What are the KPIs of awareness?
Right. So yeah, so it's the upper funnel. So it's like we're trying to track awareness by how many people see it. So it's impressions or video views or reach. Twitter, they don't do reach, they do impressions, and you could do video views as well if you got video content. So that's a gauge of how many people saw it, and then you can look at the engagement or traffic as what's the rate of people actually taking some sort of action after seeing it. You can measure those sort of things with it, but it's very basic. It's not sales. It's not we're not being judged on how many sales we're driving. We're just trying to create that awareness. Usually we're doing it on the global level, and then the regional markets, they might try to do more of those sales driven campaigns, try to bring the consumer through the lower funnel and kind of close the sale at the end.
Yeah, conversions. So why have Facebook, people ask me this question all the time, and I think I have an answer, but why have Facebook and Google managed to figure out their ad platforms in a way that makes them really profitable, and Twitter hasn't? Because it's 85% of digital advertising is Google and Facebook, including Instagram, and then Twitter gets this paltry little trickle. Like, why is that?
That's the amount of users in there. I mean, like Twitter is very American centric. So if you're a global advertiser, it in America is not a key market. It's instantly irrelevant unless you're in Japan, where Twitter is like the most popular. Twitter still like dominates in Japan. But Facebook's got like 1 billion people. Google's got even more. Like YouTube has more. I mean, so there's a lot of people who use the product. The eyeballs are there, so they can bring in more advertisers. I would say Google's I really hate the interface of the Google Ads platform. They've changed it a bunch of times. They never made it good.
AdWords. You mean like search
as
search
ads. Yeah. Like it used to be called AdWords. Now it's just called Google Ads. But like I actually like Twitter's like ad interface, like the actual advertiser platform. Like I think it's a pretty good system. It's just a smaller audience, and it's usually more niche. And the thing about Twitter, there's usually influential people who are using it actively, spending time there. Journalists, celebrities, influencers. So they're usually spend more time on Twitter than the average American or whatever. So you're reaching influential people too. You can do sort of very targeted campaigns. Like we got CES coming up in Las Vegas, right? There's going to be all these announcements. All the journalists covering that who are on the ground at CES, they're all going to be on Twitter all day. So if you want to influence a tech journalist, maybe get their attention, get them to talk about you as a tech company, you should be using social media. You should be using Twitter to engage with them. You should be finding what they're doing. You should be interacting with them in some way on social to create that awareness with that influential person who can then influence more people who may hear about it.
That's not an ad, right? You're talking about organic interaction.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I mean, I do that. It's all about brand communication for us. Like that's what I do. So it could be advertising. It could be like a paid ad platform. But yeah, I guess you were asking about like the ad spend, right? Yeah. So yeah, there's other ways to use Twitter to your advantage. I think it's an important space for brands, but as like an ad spend, yeah, it's just because it's a smaller platform. There's just going to be
these eyeballs. Brands that are pulling their money. I mean, I guess the really scary thing, right, is the scary thing for everybody on both sides is to imagine that these big advertisers pull their money, thereby essentially making Twitter worthless because it doesn't make any money with no ads. And they don't notice any difference in the bottom line, meaning they pull all these ad dollars and then nothing changes. Their sales stay exactly the same, which would mean that all this Twitter advertising they're doing is completely worthless. Like, do you think that there's a potential of that? And if that is the case, what does that say about the backbone of the entire internet, which is all ad-based stuff?
Yeah, that might not work out good. I mean, I think a lot of these companies, they can calculate the ROI a lot of the time from some of these campaigns. So, it's not always the case where they're just throwing money into the dark and they're like, oh, did it come out profitable? So Twitter's just a smaller place and it's a niche place. So it's like they've never been able to attract as many dollars. And I don't know what they're going to do to stay relevant. I mean, Elon's going to be looking for other ways. We'll see we'll see what he does. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can create a network of based marketing. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
All new companies willing to spend. The thing is, they just don't have the money of the global brands. And it is interesting though, because I kind of have this, I imagine that they're going to pull all their money and they're going to realize that none of these Twitter ads did a goddamn thing. Like, it literally, I feel like they're going to just be like, none of this did anything. And, it's going to make zero impact on the bottom line. And then what they're going to realize, if they don't already realize it, is what they're really doing is they are doing this so that they can dictate the speech on the platform. This is why they are basically funding Twitter, not because they're getting ROI from ads. They're funding it so they can control the narrative. Like, that is why they're paying for these ads, because it gives them the power to control who's on there, more or less.
Yeah, if you're a big spender on Twitter, their account people take good care of you. I got a client, they're not even one of the biggest spenders, but they spend, and they have good service people at Twitter on the ad side. And if we're getting attacked by trolls several months ago on this one brand, and like just so many, and they were like making fun of like our community manager, and they were like trying to like dox them and do personal attacks on this community manager and stuff. And it was getting ugly for the brand. And Twitter just we told them, hey, look at these accounts here. We made a list of like 100 troll accounts. Like within minutes, they're all gone, deleted. They go and they're like hitmen. They take out these accounts, the snap of a finger. Facebook wouldn't do that. Facebook and Instagram wouldn't do that. They don't give a shit about you. Twitter, they take care of their clients. Yeah. Twitter,
that's really interesting.
From an advertiser perspective, Twitter's like, I like them. Yeah.
Wait, but what were these troll accounts trolling you? They were trolling the brand.
The brand, yeah. And honestly, I was like, my advice to the brand was like, well, let's just ignore them or lean into it and have some fun. That was my advice. I'm not the one who's like, go ban these accounts. I'm not that kind of guy, but like, that's what the client wanted at the end. They're like, no, we want to like just get rid of these people.
But
Twitter did it for them.
Were these accounts though, like, did they have existences besides to just troll? Were they entirely just like trolling? Was their whole purpose just to troll the brand?
Yeah, there's a subculture of people who just troll brand accounts, and there's some kind of there's the whole lingo they have where it's like blocked equals I own you. Like they all like write that in their profile. It's like if you're a brand and you block me, it means I owned you or something like that. That's like, so they get off on like getting blocked by the brands, causing a stir. And there's some kind of a lot of them are fans of this rapper named like NBA Youngboy or something. I don't know. There's some association with him, with this community. I don't know. I got introduced to this community because they started trolling one of our brands, and I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest. But my client was not happy about it, and they're the ones who pay the bills. So
what do they do? And what do they do? And what does it have to do with NBA Youngboy?
I don't know what it has to do with him, but they all like reference him in their profiles. I don't know why. I tried to do investigation into why, like maybe this guy's a troll. I don't know. I don't actually know why, but like there's this whole like community. I bet they got a forum or a group chat somewhere where they coordinate. Because like we'd ban 100 accounts and then the next day they'd respawn. They're like probably the same people with a new account. They get a burner phone, verify their account with Twitter, and I know a lot of trolls, like, and they like to coordinate on Telegram. I know how trolls operate,
So what do they actually do? Like, what is the trolling of the brand? Like, what are they saying?
Well, they started so this brand, like they do this weird thing where like with community management and customer service, like they have a team in Asia who does the customer service specifically. So they don't do like the sassy brand stuff. They're more like, oh, you have a problem, let me help you. Let's get into DMs and I'll get this sorted. So, and they're all in Asia and they all sign off every tweet with their name, like they write their name there. So they started going after this one community manager. Like, I'm not going to say the person's name, but they like kept referencing their name and they're like kind of like making fun of this person. They kept attacking this individual who works for this brand. So they were just really annoyed by the brand was, and they didn't want any of it. They're like, we got to get rid of these trolls. They didn't want other consumers seeing the content and seeing that all the comments were trolls that like scared them. I'm like, look, man, you're getting engagement. This is an engagement. You're getting some buzz here. Yeah, it's like you could use it. It's sort of like that martial arts where somebody comes and attacks you, you use their momentum against them. Like it's like you can do that with trolls, and you can make a lot of noise, and you can have some fun, and you can even get some respect from them. Like if you're funny, if you make them laugh, you get a little respect. Like I know how to deal with trolls, so like there's a way to do it, but a lot of my clients are they don't have the balls.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. That's like we have to find out why NBA YoungBoy is. What does he have to do with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get a little bit of World Cup talk in here before we're done. So, what are these teams doing? What are we seeing these teams doing, and why are they doing it?
Well, you sent me something funny, like the England team's taking a knee. Like, are they doing it during their anthem? Like, what? Like, yeah. So or are they just doing it before the game?
So the England team is taking a knee. One of them, Harry Kane, who's like their star, tried to wear a gay armband and then was like said he would get suspended if he did it. So he, of course, didn't. Wow. And then we have the German football team is covering their mouths to say that they're not allowed to wear their One Love rainbow headband.
Well, they showed them.
Yeah, they really did show them. And then the Iran team didn't sing their national anthem because they're protesting. I don't even know what's going on in Iran.
Well, they got real shit going on over there, don't they?
Well, so what? The CIA is staging a revolution.
We're taking a knee to sort of like keep like the last flicker of this George Floyd candle burning. They're like trying to like keep that like the fire from 2020 going.
Well, no. What do you actually get to that? We didn't even get. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. So that's the world. The England players are kneeling, and everybody was saying like, "Why are you kneeling? Wait, like,
right?
What are you kneeling for?" And there was really no answer. Like the only answer the team said was like, "Because inclusivity is important." It's like, what the fuck does this have to do with like George Floyd? It's like, what? It's not even the same country, And
they want to, dude. These Europeans, they talk so much trash on us. They want to be us so bad. They always like about like, oh yeah, we're like diverse, like immigrant society, like America, and we like to just get down on a knee or an anthems. Like they love that stuff. Like they want to be like progressive Americans so bad.
No, but come on. Are we really pretending that this decision is coming from the players themselves? Is it really like in the locker room? These guys are, I mean, we've been
listen up, boys.
Yeah, listen up, boys. It's time to take a stand. What? Like we know what locker room talk is, right? Locker room talk is the most racist, homophobic, literally gay jokes are the entire basis of being in the locker room. That's all you do is gay jokes. So we're supposed to suddenly believe that in the past like 10 years, these locker rooms have like changed and everybody's like really, they're sitting around like kumbaya, like planning out how they can stand up against homophobia. Like what?
Well, they're so
racist to each other in these fucking, I mean, like, dude, every black person I've ever played a sport with, it's all fucking talking shit about each other's race. Like that's how you connect. It's like funny, that's what we do. So like,
well, they might have an inclusion officer in each locker room to enforce.
To be, right? I'm seeing it's all the same thing. Even the Iran not singing shit. It's like, I don't know. So what is going on in Iran? Enlighten me about Iran. I don't even. Really
I wish I could enlighten you, but I just know it's women in hijabs. That's all I know. Women not liking hijabs, not my business, not my country. I haven't really read up on it much. There's always something going on in Iran.
So it's the
I did
same
talk
thing,
to
right? It's the same cause. It's all women's rights, gay rights, inclusivity. It's all the same fucking thing. Look, I don't know what's happening in Iran. I'm not trying to say that they're being manipulated. Maybe these players really do care in that sense. I don't know, but it sure is a coincidence that every single one of these teams seems to have the same agenda.
Yeah, but they actually have like more oppressive laws like that are discriminatory in that country, right? Like,
Well, but we're supposed to
whereas
believe that
like we're
not a
taking a
single
knee
one
in
of these
England.
players. What?
Like, well, it's just you compare that like let's say there's a mandate where women have to wear a hijab, like where it's like us having to wear masks during COVID or something, you know, like you have that kind of mandate on one group of people in the country. Whereas England, it's like we're taking a stand against racism and we want to do inclusivity. Let's take a knee in 2022. Like what law do they have in England that's like making it hard for like women or people of color? Like what are they protesting? You know, like but there's like an actual like power structure in Iran that people are protesting against, you know, like there's something more to it, whether you agree or not, you know, like I think it's different. Yeah.
But we're supposed to believe that every single one of these players on this team has the same perspective on this. Like, aren't these players from the common people of Iran? Surely there are many Iranians who believe in Islamic law. Surely there are many who believe in Sharia law, right? So like, surely
maybe they all
there
suck
are
at soccer.
some players on the England team, or there are some people in England who don't believe there are inclusivity problems, right? Like, why are all of these players having the same opinion? Like aren't don't these players, aren't some of them conservatives? Aren't some of them believers in Sharia law? Like, what? Who is forcing them all to have the same opinion? We're like pretending. It's like kind of like the Kyrie Irving thing. We're pretending that every player in the world has the same opinion about politics.
Yeah.
Like, why is that happening?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you. Like, I guess the coaches got to be on board, but there's probably a higher influence involved. It's like, you know, there's a whole thing like we got to generate some PR. You know, a lot of these are publicity stunts and things like that. Like we need to create that World Cup moment.
Yeah. That's what it is. They're trying to create a World Cup moment with that show.
This is our World Cup moment, and we're gonna take a stand. We're here, we're here, and we're queer, and we're still here, even though we're queer. We didn't boycott it, but
yeah, right. We're here and we're queer, and we're trying to stand up and say something, but we're not actually, you know. It's just so strange. It's like they were like, this is how we can say something. The brands can't skip it. The brands can't, you know, we can't actually sacrifice anything. We can't not go to the games, but somehow we're going to get through to these players. Do you think they're getting paid off? Do you think the players are getting paid to do this?
I think it's just they probably like, hey, we're doing this and it's part of the job. Go do it, you know, if you want to keep working. I mean, I don't think they're threatening people. It's like, you're out of here if you don't do it. I don't think there's like that going on. It's more just implied. It's like, look, this is, you know, a requirement if you're part of the team.
But who is telling them this?
Probably the coach, but I'm guessing it wasn't the coach's idea though. But I mean, the coach is on like it's basically the coach is like a manager, like a middle manager. You know, there's got to be some other powers involved. I wish I could tell you who's pulling all these strings, but I don't know, man. I'm not in these boardrooms.
Well, I think the reason why sports is so susceptible to this stuff is because athletes generally are like trying to stay focused. Like I'm sure the coach and the players is like, they're trying to stay focused on the game. So when some asshole comes to them and is like, we're going to need you to do some dumb shit. I mean, either they are getting paid or they're just like, all right, the coach is just like, look, we're just doing this. Don't think about it. You know, like we don't want to get involved in this fight because then it's going to cause a bunch of problems. It's going to be, we're not going to be able to focus, etc. You know, so I think that that's why sports players are susceptible to this kind of like they're all woke thing, which is like because they're so hyper focused on the game that they just have no fucking time for this shit. They're like, you know, look, I don't give a fuck about politics. Just like leave me alone, you know?
That makes sense.
I need to focus on winning.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, another funny thing about the World Cup, I was scrolling like some keywords on Twitter, World Cup advertising, World Cup sponsor, to see what people are saying. and people keep making fun of crypto.com because they're like their names there in like the rafters, like right by the field. So you keep seeing crypto.com, but there's this whole FTX thing, and there's not a lot of confidence in crypto right now. Not necessarily Bitcoin, but crypto. It's so crypto.com advertisers making a lot of noise. We're like, wait, that's still a thing? Did they prepay, and are they out of money now? Are they dead? Like nobody really knows what's going on. Like nobody has any faith in this company, even though they're this huge sponsor.
Yeah, but so is crypto.com like, are they an exchange like FTX, or are they just like
I don't use them.
Yeah,
The only exchange I've only used like Coinbase and as an exchange, and I bought Bitcoin on Snapchat just to try it out. That's all I do. I never use crypto.com or FTX.
Yeah. How do you like Coinbase?
I mean, I would if you have Bitcoin or something else, like have your own storage for it. Don't leave it in a place like Coinbase, because what if Coinbase is the next FTX and you lose all your money?
Like,
yeah,
why shouldn't it be?
Yeah. So I mean, I would I used their service before. I'm not like some big advocate of them though.
Yeah. So yeah, crypto.com, like, yeah, did they buy this out, and does anybody actually use crypto.com? I mean, the Staples Center is still called crypto.com arena, so like,
yeah, the FTX arena, yeah, isn't there an FTX arena or something?
There was,
like that?
but they took it
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
and my joke is they just replaced it with CIA, which is the real force behind it. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, anything else to talk about with regard to World Cup or Balenciaga? Or I actually was really interested to hear what you had to say about the Twitter, like your experiences with Twitter. I should clip that part out. That's interesting.
Well, I thought it was, Mike Cernovich tweeted this thing today about alcohol at the World Cup. And he's like, yeah, I think they made the right call. Us Westerners, we're so obsessed with alcohol. And, Budweiser's like probably the biggest sponsor of the event. And they didn't know until like 48 hours in advance that they were pulling the plug on booze at the stadium. So Budweiser's like, hey, we're advertising our product here. You can't even buy it. So I wonder how they're feeling. And they tweeted about it like, well, this is awkward. They did a little sassy tweet, made some noise with that. But what do you I mean, when I was at World Cup in 2018, like Cernovich is there talking to these Westerners like, oh, you're a bunch of drunks and you're causing all this noise at World Cup. When I was at World Cup, it was mostly Latin American people. And this was in Russia 4 years ago. If you go to any World Cup anywhere in the world, most of the fans that are there are going to be from a Latin American country. I was walking around St. Petersburg. Every street corner, there's some guy with a Bluetooth speaker playing Mexican polka. It's like I'm in Texas at home or something, Like that's and they're all getting drunk and having a good time. Like, I mean, it was pretty rowdy. And they all have chants, and like every Latin American country is chanting except for Argentina. They're all chanting this: America Latina, menos Argentina. It's like America, the Latin America, except for Argentina. They're all like,
why do they say that? Why is that their
they all hate Argentina. I don't know why. They all hate them. So like it's pretty rowdy and fun. And so all these drunkards that Cernovich should be talking to are Latin Americans. He should have done the tweet in Spanish or something. Like that's who that's his audience. Like those are the people who go to World Cup and get really wasted.
So does he not drink?
I don't know. He's always trying to be a contrarian. Like, him.
Well, dude, I recently, speaking of Cernovich, came across the article of him fucking a tranny.
He fucked a tranny?
Oh yeah, dude. There's like a deep cut blog from him describing getting really fucked up and banging a tranny, and he describes it in like extreme detail. And he tries to pass it off as I was really drunk, but it's like, no, bro, no. And like I was really high on oxy or some shit. And I'm like, dude, I've been as drunk and high as you could possibly get, and I have never had sex. I would definitely not have sex with a transsexual man.
You could have performance issues with a woman. Like if you're with a woman and you're not turned on or attracted, how are you gonna make it happen? And he's drunk. And he's on, what is he on drugs too? I mean, drunk, that doesn't help. That doesn't help with the equipment, either. So he was able to pull it off, perform. Right. And he's, oh man, I was just drunk.
I had no idea what was going on. It's like you can tell he wants to admit it, like he wants to get it off his chest. So he kind of describes it in this way. But man, I can't get it out of my head. I don't know, man. I don't know about Cerno, but a lot of these dudes are questionable. But he, hey, he's seemed to figure out how to make money on it, so good for him.
I mean, I follow him. I think he says interesting stuff from time to time, but I sure he's like one of those guys that can kind of be annoying, and I think he likes to piss people off. He likes to get that reaction. He likes
So
to
are
be
you
that
good
contrarian
at,
role.
he's like very, I've been working with a guy who I
Mhm.
won't name, like on the Will Twitter, just trying to get that back going. And are you like, this guy who I'm working with really is great at Twitter. Like he understands
Mm.
exactly like when to tweet. You retweet here, you quote tweet, you don't retweet, this is the account you want to go after. Are you good at this shit? Like, do you understand because for me, like, I do not understand the dynamics of Twitter at all. Like I've managed to like grow my account to like 1,200 people, but that's really just from Substack, people finding.
Mm.
Like I don't understand. Are you good at like the ins and outs of understanding Twitter?
Well, I only have 900 fans, so on my personal account, so I'm not like some Twitter like savant or anything. But the thing is, I don't treat my personal Twitter like work though, and I'm
You
so if
don't
I'm
tweet a
using
lot.
Twitter, it's yeah, I
You
don't
don't
tweet a
really
lot.
tweet that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't tweet a ton. If I feel like I got something to say, I will. But like, I do some replying, and I usually, if I look at my stats, like my best performing tweets, the best performing ones are always like a reply to some bigger tweet. And I know how to make a reply like get some action. And that's a lot of the stuff I do with brands is like, no, you need to be in there replying to people. You need to be interacting. That's like that's how you get cheap impressions on Twitter is just
Yeah.
being in the reply section.
So
And
what's your reply strategy?
well, you got to look at like a tweet that's starting to rise. It's not like already prominent. It's like starting to come up and rise. And then you got to be one of the first to respond to it. And it's got to be a witty response. So because everybody likes to look at the replies on Twitter, that's one of the user behaviors. So everybody's looking for that funny reply. So if you are more visible in the replies and, people start liking and retweeting your tweet there, you could get more eyeballs in the reply than the original tweet if it's good enough.
So how do you find the original rising tweet?
Well, if I'm working, like, let's say I'm working with a gaming client, we might look at some new game title launches, and let's say this brand is not a sponsor of those game titles, so we can't officially use their IP or anything, but we want to be in the conversation. So if like the brand is announcing it, we might reply to the brand, or if there's some Twitter gaming like influencer talking about it, we'll kind of monitor the recent tweets, and we'll start to see which ones are starting to get some traction, and we'll engage with those. It takes a lot of care. You got to be there in the moment. It's very much in the moment. This is like the real brand social stuff. Like I feel like a lot of our brands were doing these content plans a month in advance, and like you're not being reactive if you're planning a month in advance on social. Social is all about being reactive to the moment. So with Twitter community management, being a reply guy as a brand, like that's where the real fun is. That's where some of the action is. That's kind
Right.
of one of the funnest parts of the job, I would say.
Right, which is like kind of back to what we were saying before, where it's like actually the best shit on Twitter is not advertising; it's just interacting. That's where you're
Yeah.
really going to get the most out of it, anyway.
Yeah, and it's interacting with the right people too. It's like it's a lot of people with influence are on Twitter.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, this was great. A lot of fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. I've been listening. I'm a long-time listener, first-time guest. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean the podcast, I don't know the deal with the podcast. Do you think I need a intro music, or do you like that it just goes right in?
I kind of like that. I mean, if you know Dick Masterson, and he's based in LA, he does a couple podcasts. So he's got the Dick Show, and he's got The Biggest Problem in the Universe. Both shows, like it's just starts. There's no. It's like they're in the middle of a conversation when it starts, and you're like, and then when it ends, it just ends abruptly too. So like sometimes when you got the autoplay on your iPhone, it just goes into the next podcast and you don't even notice. Like you just think it's the same show. So like I kind of like that. It's a little different. It's like, okay, like no bullshit. Let's just get to
bullshit.
it.
Yeah, that was kind of my idea, but I don't know. It's funny. Like when I write the Substack written posts are like I get tons of engagement, I get tons of traffic. It's great for Twitter, but the podcast, it doesn't seem like I do the podcast just to support the writing, just to have something constantly going and to talk to cool people and like you and get good info. But yeah, it's almost like the podcast is kind of procrastination for the writing. You know what I mean? So it's like part of me thinks like maybe I should just do less podcasting, but I don't know.
My advice now, this might be hard to gain an audience over time, but I would do the podcast live. Like what we're doing, this becomes a live stream, and that way you're
just do
giving
a live
people
stream.
like you get the fear of missing out. It's like, oh, it's live right now, I better tune in, they're going to say something wild, you know, that like a lot of live streamers, and then it becomes interactive. You have an audience, they comment, so you can react to the audience in real time. So the podcasts, you know, it becomes a bit more fun, I think, when you have the audience. Though if you have like 2 viewers, might not be as
well. But and
exciting.
do you think do that on YouTube?
YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, you know, a lot of alt tech platforms now too, you know.
Yeah, so like do it on Rumble and then just like share the link on Twitter or something, right? That's how you do it.
Yeah. So being on a platform where people could sort of like that are already there, like Rumble, people might already be on Rumble, they see somebody's live, so they might tune in. So you get that discovery angle. And then you get your own audience. Yeah. Like then you have your own audience where you just push the tweet, Telegram account, push notification, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I did do one live stream, and we had like 20 people on there participating, which was cool. I actually did it as a Twitter space, and then we just recorded Twitter space.
Yeah.
And then I posted it as a podcast. Would you then post it as a podcast afterwards? Is that what people do? They turn the live stream, then they post it.
Yeah, like my buddy Ethan Ralph, like he does the kill stream. That's what he does. Like he's streaming sometimes 9-12 hours a day. Wow. And and he doesn't put everything into like the podcast feed, but he's got a show. Yeah, he puts it in there. So like, the next day or 2 days later, people might get the podcast feed. But but the excitement is live, because there's a whole fear of missing out angle when you're live.
I think that's a great call. I think I should switch this to basically live conversations that then I just post on Substack afterwards as things. And then people can give the super comments and shit, right? I should just do it on Rumble, really.
Yeah, I'd get on YouTube and Twitch. Just you can do it where it all streams to multiple places at once. Like you use OBS, and then you just click a button and it goes to multiple platforms at once. And then you could have like a separate monitor where you're looking at all the chats and all the different sites. And the streamers, there's a lot of stuff you can learn in this space. I'm still learning myself.
So you can stream to YouTube and Rumble at the same time?
Yeah, that's what Ralph does. He streams to Cozy TV. That's like a members, like you have to be invited to stream there. He streams there, Rumble, and then he used to do YouTube and Odyssey, and he does Rockfin too.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, good advice. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Stay in touch. And Nate, well, where can we find you, Nathan?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at NateyBakes, Instagram at NateyBakes, NateyBakes. It's a nickname my wife gave me a long time ago. That became my social media handle. So any social media, you can hit me up there. I don't always post, so it is what it is. You'll see me every now and then.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Talk to you later.
Cheers, dude. Thanks for having me.